Hello and welcome to the NHL Best Bets. Last night our picks were not exactly great. See here the results. We had Kings at home against Arizona. Kings didn't show too much in that game. I think Arizona scored 2 goals in first 3 or 4 shots and pulled the victory easily 5-2 against home team. Michael Bunting scored hat trick for a visitor there, not maybe predicted in our machine. Then Philadelphia-Boston was over in our books. It looked nice and easy over game in first period, but then in third period both teams started to maybe secure something. I don't know what, but they didn't do too much for the offensive side, and end result was 3-2 after overtime. So Philadelphia scored in overtime, and game was under. Tommy, do you think we made poor picks last night?
Maybe this time we did make poor picks. It was we put a lot of faith in Los Angeles Kings to be actually competing and showing that they want to make the playoffs. That definitely didn't happen. They were very bad against Arizona. Maybe Arizona got a bit lucky in the beginning, scoring 3 goals very early on. This guy who I had to check up that who he was, the Bunting fella, scored a hat trick. Arizona played really good power play, scored a couple of goals. So they were a better team by far in this one, and just makes me wonder if Kings have actually just decided that it is time to call it a day and just drop this season, because these are the games that they need to show up. They need to beat their rivals at the playoff contest, and now they didn't. So it might be season pretty much over for Kings. Even you can't never say that for sure, but it did look pretty bad for the home team there. Maybe we put a little bit too much faith on that team, and they are not that good. So let's keep away maybe from them from now on. And in the other game, two struggling teams in the East, Boston Bruins, Philadelphia Flyers. Boston got their game going against Pittsburgh, maybe a little bit due to Pittsburgh's defensive errors as well. So against Philadelphia, it was a lot harder to score goals especially in the two last periods. The first one, like you mentioned, looked a lot better. Both teams got their chances, but scored only once per each team. But then it slowed down, and both teams, you could see that they have had issues in defense and in offense in building up the chances, and now maybe a little bit too much pressure, a little bit shaky efforts there in the goal scoring chances, and only managed to score 2 each in the regular time. Philadelphia then took the spoils in the overtime. But I do think that this kind of game should go over. I do think they were capable. They were enough chances there to score 3 goals each. It didn't happen this time, but I don't think this pick particularly was a bad one. The Kings one maybe was.
Yeah, if we go to West Division, currently Arizona is their fourth. They are now 9 points ahead of Kings, that is second to last, just above Anaheim. So maybe it would be the most interesting matchup for the Kings rest of the season when they are playing against Anaheim and checking who is the best team in greater LA area.
Yeah, that's the only battle remaining for them.
Yeah, but there were a few other good games in West. St. Louis showed that they are maybe not the playoffs team this time. At least they couldn't do anything against Vegas, who rooted 6-1 victory on the road against Stanley Cup champions from a few years ago, and I think it would be maybe too little too late if St. Louis start to play right now like they did when they won the Stanley Cup. And then other game, Colorado cruised to victory in Minnesota. I think they were leading the game 5-1 after scoring 5 goals in a row, and then just let foot off the gas, and Minnesota scored few goals to tie up the numbers to 45, but still Colorado looks to be a very strong team in the West.
Yeah, Colorado is definitely unstoppable at the moment because they are scoring goals from their chances, which they didn't do in the early on in the season. Now it was a game of Colorado's offense against Minnesota's defense, and this time Colorado's offense took the spoils quite easily. They let their foot off the gas in the end, and maybe allowed a little bit too much gave too much space for Minnesota to come back to the game, but still managed to score the victory. So good game from Colorado, and have to be said about St. Louis Blues that they are the team that showed that never give up, and there is always a chance as long as there is a chance. But this time it doesn't look very good, and there is not a lot of changes coming up. So I do think that they might be out of this contest. But it makes the Western Division extremely interesting because now Blues are there, not in the playoffs. Arizona is the team holding the fourth spot. San Jose is in the mix, and now Blues is still considered maybe somewhat of a challenger. So there will be a lot of interesting games coming up in the West.
Yeah, but St. Louis need to start to win those games. They have now lost 7 in a row, and naturally that impacts quite a bit to their chances for the playoffs. And I think only a few games of these were somehow even. There has been these 5-0, 5-1, 6-1, 4-1 games during this time span. So not very good position for the Blues.
No, and it definitely hurts when they lose to the Anaheims, if they lose to Kings. It's okay if you lose to Colorado and Vegas because they are going to take the 2 first spot in this division. But other teams, you do have to at least compete. And these worst teams, the California ones, you do have to beat.
How about otherwise, how our machine did last night? I think there were some picks that we discussed yesterday. Toronto took a road victory in Calgary, as we predicted, and then there were a few pretty even games, Ottawa, Winnipeg, and Montreal Edmonton in North Division.
Yeah, we got half correct in the side value in this last night. Actually, I'm missing the Winnipeg-Ottawa game here. We did have Winnipeg winning that one, so that's also a positive. We did have Philadelphia winning Boston, which provided the best value last night. It was plus 165 for Philadelphia, so a good pick there. Otherwise, we are in the plus for about 80 from last night in the side value, so that was okay. Not the great night, but okay. And then in the totals, of course, when we pick something, it goes wrong. But 4 out of 6, I'm not entirely sure of that Winnipeg game. What was our pick for that one, but we did have 4 out of 6, so nice profit from there.
Yeah, it's always good to trust the machine and then try to figure out some kind of good picks out of those that the machine provides for you. But let's go through the picks for tonight. We have quite a few games. I think 8 or 9 games actually scheduled for tonight. This Winnipeg Vancouver game is postponed, and we have here Buffalo against New Jersey. 2 not so great teams facing each other, have both struggled a bit for the scoring. Under 5.5 goals with minus 114 odds provides good value in this game. And then top match of the East, Washington continues their road trip to Long Island, and Islanders has some good value here, even though odds are maybe a bit low end, minus 125, but Islanders have played well. They beat Washington a few nights ago, and since then Washington has played 2 games on the road against New Jersey. They won both, but pretty even games, and I think tiredness may be in the picture as well when you play 4 games in 5 nights.
Yeah, that will take a toll on Washington for sure. Their veteran players have slowed down a little bit, and I think New York Islanders is a perfect match for Capitals. in that way that Islanders know how to beat this team, and especially at home when they get to do their line mixing and all that, it'll be a Islanders game, and nice value there in the simulations. We have Islanders winning 55% of the time, and the odds indicate around 52%. So nice little value there for the home favorite that we think that is a bit better team at the moment. Of course, Capitals and Islanders both on top of their Eastern Division, so very thick rivalry there as well. Then the other game, the same division actually in the East, the bottom teams there, Devils and Sabres. Both teams had a long losing streak. Devils climbed out of it a little bit earlier than Buffalo did. Now in the past couple of games, Buffalo actually won 2 out of 3, while New Jersey has lost 3 in a row. Not very offensive teams. They have a couple of young guns in New Jersey. Jack Hughes hasn't been able to score a lot of points, but has created tons of chances. In Buffalo, of course, everyone is expecting a lot of stuff from Taylor Hall, not much seen. So both teams struggling offensively, not a very good defense, but they do have to play through the defense in order to win these games. So I do believe that this will be very tight matchup, very close checking, and not a lot of goal scoring chances overall. So it's a nice value for the under. In the simulations, the result is clear. 72% for under 5.5 goals, so not much of a chance going over.
Then we have a back-to-back game from last night. Philadelphia hosts Boston second. No, now they are playing vice versa, but the same matchup, Philadelphia-Boston. And there, when we take a look of these back-to-back results from the last few seasons, on the road, Boston hasn't been so strong in those back-to-back games as they have been when playing regularly other games. So they are under 50% winning when they have been otherwise winning 54.3% those road games when they are back-to-back. Naturally, this is not full away back-to-back game, but the second game is on the road. So we categorize it that way. And at the same time, Philadelphia has also struggled a bit these back-to-back home games. So 2 already struggling teams having a matchup that hasn't favoring none of these teams. So do you think it would be sure under this time as it was last night as well?
Well, the simulations still indicate that it should go over because both of these teams have the capability of scoring goals, especially Boston Bruins. Of course, the first line that caused some havoc against Penguins was very quiet last night. And similar thing in Philadelphia, they have a lot of young offensive players also in the defense. So a lot of goals expected again from the simulations. Boston should have the upper hand. They are still a little bit better team than the Flyers are. Funnily enough, we have been maybe predicting Boston to do a little bit worse than they have done in past couple of years. This time, the same thing. We thought that Boston will not be the best team in this division. They haven't been. While Philadelphia was supposed to be this season the best team, they haven't been. So we haven't been exactly correct with the Philadelphia Flyers. Maybe this time Boston will show that now let's put some faith in that veteran team. And they do have a chance to win. And I do think they might bounce back from the close loss last night.
Then in the Central Division, whatever Discovery Central it's called, Florida travels to Raleigh to play against Carolina. That is top matchup of the division, and our simulation predict home team to have an upper hand in this one, same way as bookmakers, but we have good value there as well. Home win percentage in this matchup for Carolina is 80%, so they have been winning 4 out of 5 during the last 3 seasons, and so far this season, Hurricanes have won 3 out of 4. So do you think there is good value to bet home team here, even though the odds are not maybe the greatest.
Yeah, there is value for the home team, and it's understandable. So even if Florida has won 6 in a row now, Florida has played against Columbus, they played against Detroit. So a little bit of this false hope for them. They've looked maybe a bit better than they are. Of course, still the team is competitive. They are one of the top teams in this division. But Carolina is a similar way, as good in offense, maybe a little bit better in the defense. Now they got Petr Mrazek back in the goal, number 1 goalkeeper for them. Let's see if he plays or is it one of the other guys. But the other guys, James Reimer and Alex Nedeljkovic, have played really well. So goaltending is not an issue for Carolina. For Florida, Chris Driedger has played better than Bobrovsky, but Bobrovsky is at least supposed to start tonight. So a little bit tables turn towards Carolina in this case. In simulation, 64% for the home team, while the odds are around minus 140. So there is small value for the home team in this top matchup of the Central, was it Discovery Central Division?
Yeah, let's discover what name there is for this division next time. But speaking about Carolina, they have, like you said, 3 goalies, and Mrazek came like storming to the first game after his injury, after playing few great games in AHL as well. Do you think before the trade deadline, one of these goalies will move?
That's of course a good chance of that, because there is 3 NHL caliber goalkeepers, and might be that Carolina needs to or wants to strengthen some other areas of their team. But what makes this deadline, of course, a little bit more interesting than usual is the COVID protocol, the quarantine you might have to go through. And also next season, when Seattle comes in, there will be the expansion draft. There are certain rules that you have to protect the players. So it plays a big part on which kind of players will be moved. So I do think that it will be quite quiet trade deadline this time around. Maybe a couple of players whose contracts are coming to an end go somewhere as rentals. But no, I don't think there will be any bigger blockbusters this time. But one of the players, Carolina's one of these 3 goaltenders, probably James Reimer, is the one who might be moving to somewhere where there is not adequate backup for the playoff run.
That sounds like a good evaluation of the trade deadline activity. We go that through a bit later this week in more detail, but tonight we'll concentrate on these few games and naturally cheer for home team in Long Island, and then for the goalies in New Jersey.
Interesting games in the East Coast.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.